I feel like the way the desert has been portrayed to us is the reason why we often overlook it. I feel like there's gonna be some great discoveries made in the desert. Like, seriously. And I feel like it's a lot to be discovered there. But I don't know, I just get that feeling oftentimes that we just skip right over it. So today, we're not gonna do that. Today, we're gonna check out this video here that's, this desert discovery will give you chills. All right, and start shining a little bit more light on the desert. So, if you're new, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, join the fam. Let's check this video out.
Deserts are seriously creepy places at times. Incredibly hot in the day, freezing at night, and totally deserted. If you were a ghost, it's definitely a place you'd hang out. And plenty do, it seems, along with a whole bunch of other weird and wonderful stuff. From the land of the skeletons to the creepy necropolis, here's the 20 strangest things found in the desert. Number 20. Edward Boleyn. One of the world's most scary beaches, the Skeleton Coast, is found in Namibia. That name ought to offer you a clue as to what you can dig for there. This desert discovery will give you chills. I'm talking skeletons. It's littered with skeletons. That's often a bad sign for a beach, or anywhere in fact.
Yeah.
The most amazing thing about this place though are the ship skeletons that are scattered all over the place. Some of the wrecked ships date back thousands of years, while others are only a few years old. Undoubtedly, a boat would have a tough time now.
How did it get, I know how, but you still look at it and go, how did it get there?
Navigating this coast. It seems that these things have been lost in the sand as the sea has retreated over time. The beach is going to be really unsettling. People have actually sought sanctuary in the wrecks and ruins in this remote region of the earth, especially during the 19th century diamond prospecting activities that took place here. The dunes are said to sing when the winds sweep over them, generating an odd and unsettling symphony that'll terrify you even more. This place not only looks terrifying, it also sounds scary too. Before we go on, like this video, smash that subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Number 19. 802 tombs discovered in necropolis of Lisht in Egypt. Egypt's history is being continually uncovered. Over 800 graves have been found in September 2018 at a little-known archaeological site. The relics were interred in a necropolis in the town of Lisht, in the Saqqara area of the Sahara Desert, and was thought to be roughly 4,000 years old. A group of scholars discovered exactly 802 graves in the ancient cemetery. Between two pyramids, one to the south and one to the north, the mysterious location was uncovered. The tombs are built in a distinctive manner with carvings in rocks that are covered with brick and limestone. The necropolis, which was constructed at the base of a mountain, comprises two portions, according to Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities. In the first, a passage leads to a hallway with a tiny room with inscription-decorated walls and a vaulted ceiling, which is covered with hieroglyphs. The excavation is a component of an initiative to save multiple Egyptian ancient monuments. Following the country's 2009 to 2013 economic and political crisis, there were several instances of archaeological site looting and damage. Number 18. Marree Man. A helicopter pilot flying over central Australia noticed a large man's figure for the first time 20 years ago. An alleged Aboriginal hunter stands 4.2 kilometers tall on a remote plateau in South Australia. The name Marree Man comes from a nearby village, and it refers to one of the largest designs ever inscribed into the soil. But its originator and purpose are still unknown. Australian businessman Dick Smith offered a $3,700 reward in exchange for any information on the piece's origins. Marree Man has received a lot of attention since it was found in the desert, some 700 kilometers north of Adelaide. It's grown in popularity on tour.
And why I keep staring at it, trying to make it seem like it's not what it is. But the longer you stare at it, the more you see, yeah, it is, you know what I mean? Some kind of creative way somebody did that to make it look like a man. I don't know how they did that, but I was just sitting here just trying to be like, nah, that maybe it's pareidolia or something like that, but I can't unsee it.
Tourist flights, since it's too large to be viewed from the ground. Local media reports claim that Marree Man had an initial depth of around 35 centimeters and an outline measuring 28 kilometers. The image depicts an Aboriginal guy clutching a woomera, or throwing stick, in his left hand, according to the locals. Its creators, according to Marree pub owner Phil Turner, used GPS technology and were professionals. Numerous theories about its founders have been advanced over the years. Pilot Trevor Wright said he unintentionally came upon Marree Man on June 26, 1998. However, local media organizations and companies at the time were receiving anonymous faxes to try and tell them about Marree Man's existence. Many individuals believe the faxes were the work of American authors since they were written with US spelling and references. A plaque with the American flag and Olympic rings was also present at the site. But others, including local artists and even Australian army troopers, have on the other hand theorized that these clues were deliberately misleading. Number 17. Iraqi fighter jet found buried in the desert. In search of nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons, the United States invaded Iraq in 2003. American forces discovered a variety of strange items, including toilets and guns made of gold, a Quran inscribed in blood, and Saddam's romance book. While they were unable to locate any weapons of mass destruction, they were nonetheless able to locate a bunch of weird stuff. They specifically discovered an airplane buried in the sand next to an excellent airstrip. Numerous MiG-25 Foxbat fighters and Su-25 Frogfoot fighter bombers were pulled out of the sand one day in 2003 by American soldiers. Despite spending who knows how long in the sand, the airplanes were mostly in good condition despite lacking wings. One is left to ask, why did Saddam intentionally bury his aircraft? Iraqi pilots were prepared to defend their country against the American-led invasion, but their ruler of that country would not allow it. Given that the US currently flies the F-22, he was aware of the damage that American technology may cause to his aircraft. They'd be ripped to pieces. He also remembered the first Gulf War, where they were dispatched to defend the motherland, and it did not go well, to say the least. Saddam commanded that his modern warplanes be disassembled and interred close to the airfields at Al-Taqadum and Al-Assad air bases. This was undoubtedly a wise choice for the aircrafts in hindsight. Number 16. A whalebone graveyard. Whales typically lay on the ocean floor once they pass away, but occasionally diseases, whaling, or even poisonous algae causes whales to pass away on dry ground. In Chile's Atacama Desert between 2010 and 2012, construction workers discovered ancient whale bones sticking up from the ground and rocks. 40 baleen whales, sperm whales, seals, aquatic sloths, and other animals perished at the location, known as Cerro Balena, aka Whale Hill, in 4 different mass stranding incidents millions of years ago, according to studies conducted by American and Chilean scientists. The creatures had perished quickly during a catastrophic occurrence, most likely a sizable and toxic algae bloom, according to analysis of the bones. Modern mass strandings are frequently thought to be caused by this phenomenon, as seen by the case of the 337 SEI whales who perished in southern Chile last year, which highlights how harmful these toxic occurrences are to marine life. Number 15. Strange Egyptian desert cones. So what is this? A recently found alien city? Sand-based crop circles? Geological weirdness? Until you notice the pattern they create from the air, these unusual cones and holes in the Egyptian desert appear to be an odd wind formation. The earthwork Desert Breath was made in the middle of the 1990s over the course of several years by the Greek artist Danae Stratou and the Dast art group. In March 1997, Desert Breath was finished. Desert Breath is still present and becoming a tool for measuring time as it slowly disintegrates. It's known as a state of mind or mental environment. 8,000 meters cubed of sand had to be moved during the building of Desert Breath in order to accurately produce positive and negative conical volumes. The conical volumes create 2 overlapping spirals that radiate out from a shared center in the same rotational direction with a 180-degree phase difference. The center is a W-shaped vessel with a 30-meter diameter that's completely submerged in water. Number 14. Fake Prada store, Texas.
Now this is what I wanted to see, like, why?
Submerged in water. Number 14. Fake Prada store, Texas. Prada Marfa, a permanent artwork by Elm Green and Dragset, is located beside US Route 90 in Jeff Davis County, Texas, in the United States, 1.4 miles northwest of Valentine and about 26 miles northwest of Marfa. The undertaking, which appears as a standalone building with a Prada store, was formally launched on October 1st, 2005. The makers of the installation labeled it a pop architectural land art project. Ronald Rale and Virginia San Fratello, two...
And note that it's still in pristine condition, depending on what photo they're showing us. But if this is the present photo, it's still in pristine condition. Did y'all notice the camera at the top? You can't just have a Prada shot where it looks like, I don't know if they real or not on the inside, or they just, you know what I mean, some artwork of a bag. But out in the middle of nowhere, yeah, you need a camera out there to make sure nobody try to come in and steal anything.
A pop architectural land art project. Ronald Rale and Virginia San Fratello, two American architects, helped make the $120,000 structure viable. Instead of being renovated, the building was intended to gradually degrade into its surroundings. The concept was changed, though, after robbers broke into the sculpture that night. It was constructed and stole its contents.
Well, there went that. That's what I was saying. I figured, bro, you can't just put a like, Prada is well known. You can't just put that out in the middle of nowhere, man, and not have no way to be protected against somebody trying to break in. Like, no. And I was about to give them that praise for it not happening, but it's happened already.
The building was made to resemble a Prada store and is made of adorable bricks, plaster, paint, glass pane, aluminum frame, MDF, and carpet. Number 13. Libyan Desert glass mystery solved. Experts have discovered the answer as to a nearly 100-year-old mystery. The glass found in the Egyptian desert was formed by a meteorite impact rather than an atmospheric airburst. The findings were published in the Journal of Geology and have an impact on how we perceive the threat posed by asteroids. Scientists from Curtin University in Australia examined samples of Libyan desert glass, which dates back 29 million years and is found across thousands of square kilometers in western Egypt. Small grains of the zirconian mineral were used to make the glass. Canary yellow glass, which is nearly completely silica, was used to make the scarab on King Tut's chest. Lead study author Aaron Cavassier of Curtin University claims that zircons in the glass preserved evidence of the earlier existence of the high-pressure mineral redidite, which...
See, this is why I need videos like this to put me up on game and put me up on understanding, because I'd have walked right past that not knowing what that was.
Preserved evidence of the earlier existence of the high-pressure mineral redidite, which can only form after a meteorite impact. Cavassier claims that a catastrophic airburst over Russia in 2013 that caused severe property damage, human casualties, but did not melt any surface materials, gave rise to the theory that the glass may have formed after a massive atmospheric airburst. Even while meteorite collisions are uncommon, they may be extremely harmful. Although airbursts are increasingly frequent, it's comforting to know that it's doubtful glass will develop in the Libyan Desert anytime soon. Number 12. Mysterious fairy circles. Maybe now fairy circles make sense. Some academics have long argued that these reoccurring barren patches that appear in grasslands in Australia and Namibia might be the consequences of subsurface termite activity. The most thorough monitoring project to date, however, reveals that fairy rings are created by the grasses themselves. The study, which was released in the Journal of Ecology, describes how the unfriendly clay crust that makes up the barren portion of fairy rings is produced by the harsh, arid circumstances in Australia, which are occasionally broken up by major rainstorms.
They remind you of ringworms. Remember getting those as a kid? If you played outside in dirt, that's what they remind you of.
Arid circumstances in Australia, which are occasionally broken up by major rainstorms. The margins of this crust, however, are a relative oasis where grasses may establish a home since water pours off of it. It's a vicious cycle. Where there are no plants, weathering from rain and sunlight makes the soil even more inhospitable. While in places where grass has managed to grow, the vegetation cover lowers the soil temperature by up to 77 degrees Fahrenheit, traps water, and encourages germination of new seedlings. They installed a weather station and soil monitoring equipment approximately an inch beneath both the barren and green areas of the terrain in order to keep a close eye on the fairy circles. A single genus of Triota grasses dominates the desert area outside of Newman. Getson argued that this is crucial to the creation of fairy circle patterns because if more grass species were present, they'd fill various ecological niches and probably cover the bare areas. Number 11. A field of graffiti-adorned Cadillac. The eccentric helium millionaire Stanley Marsh III created Cadillac Ranch, which was built in 1974. Marsh provided the funding for the installation of 10 Cadillacs painted in graffiti and partially buried in a barren Texas field in cooperation with the San Francisco art organization, the Ant Farm. At the same angle as Cheops pyramids, the automobiles are parked nose down and facing west. In order to escape the growing metropolis, the automobiles were actually pushed 2 miles further out in 1997. The public's welcome to visit Cadillac Ranch at any time, and visitors are strongly encouraged. Graffiti on the autos is also encouraged, and the paint is always changing. The vehicles were given an all-pink makeover in 2005 to remember breast cancer survivors, and subsequently they were given a black and yellow makeover to commemorate the loss of one of Marsh's lifelong friends. While Marsh supported both tourists and graffiti, he did not appreciate tourists taking the numerous colorful creative road signs that are scattered across the region. Even worse, Marsh was known to temporarily imprison thieves in a neighboring chicken coop. It's believed that Cadillac Ranch served as a model for similar works of art like Columbine City and the neighboring VW Slugbug Ranch. The Carhenge Momentum in Alliance, Nebraska was also influenced by the ranch. Number 10. Africa's mysterious lakes from nowhere. The natural world is a dynamic, ever-evolving entity. The Earth's surface is pliable and constantly changing as mountains rise, valleys grow, lakes are formed or disappeared, and glaciers meander across terrain. Even though the majority of these changes occur over millions of years, there are those strange occasions when new geographical characteristics erupt out of nowhere. The emergence of sinkholes and other...
No explanation, and we're just fearless enough just to go play in it. No explanation of where it came from. That's what gets me. I'm sorry. We just too fearless sometimes, man.
New geographical characteristics erupt out of nowhere. The emergence of sinkholes and other unexplained holes in Siberia is well documented. But what's probably less well known are the odd emergence of not one, but 2 lakes in Africa that seem to materialize out of thin air and capture the attention of local people. One of the enigmatic lakes suddenly formed in Tunisia's scorching arid desert, where one would least expect a lake to be, seemingly overnight. A lake shimmering in the heat where none had ever been before was discovered by shepherds in August 2014 as they were out working in the scorching summer sun in the isolated dry environment of the Gafsa area in central Tunisia. Mehdi Bello, who subsequently told media that he saw a strange sight in the Desert George, was the person who first saw it. Number 9. An African ghost town. Hundreds of German miners who were frantically looking for their fortune in the Libyan Desert once called this place home. But over a century after Kolmanskop reached its height as a lively and busy oasis, it's now a rundown ghost town that's gradually being swallowed up by the sand. Today, a large number of tourists and photographers visit the region to see how the once grand German mansions are turning into desert. In less than 40 years, the town was constructed, abandoned, and afterwards abandoned to the desert for many years. The wind has destroyed grand mansions, and the expanding dunes have buried structures feet deep in sand. However, in order to preserve part of Kolmanskop's heritage, mining corporation De Beers established a museum in 1980. Today, visitors flock to admire the renovated structures and explore the unsettling abandoned residences. When diamonds were found lying bare on the sand, Kolmanskop was quickly established back in the early 1900s. Zacharias Lawala, a railroad worker, stumbled upon the diamond in 1908 while excavating away from the track. He showed it to August Staunch, his supervisor, who had the stone examined and identified as a diamond. Upon hearing the news, the region saw a diamond rush, and within a few years, hundreds of Germans had settled in the Namib Desert. As Kolmanskop expanded, it began to resemble a German town. A hospital, ballroom, power plant, school, skittle alley, theater, sports hall, and ice factory were constructed by the locals. The town even has Africa's first tram and the first X-ray station in the southern hemisphere. Kolmanskop was home to 800 local Awambo contractor laborers, 300 German contract employees, and 40 children by the 1920s. Nevertheless, the town started to decline after World War I, especially after better diamonds were discovered further south, and it was abandoned in 1954. Number 8. World War II plane wreckage found 70 years later. This lost and forgotten rare World War II aircraft is a memorial to its tragic pilot. When Flight Sergeant Dennis Copping, 24 years old, was forced to crash land here on June 1942, he probably thought he had a little chance of surviving. On June 28, 1942, Flight Sergeant Dennis Copping was moving a damaged P-40 Kitty Hawk between two British airfields in Egypt for maintenance and repairs. But because it was never able to reach its destination, the Kitty Hawk's whereabouts and the fate of the 24-year-old pilot remained a mystery for 70 years. The aviation equivalent of Tutankhamun's tomb is supposed to be the RAF fighter plane that was thought to have vanished into the sands of time when its pilot crash-landed into the desert during World War II. Polish oil industry employee Jacob Perka found a crash-landed P-40 aircraft while on an expedition in Al-Wadi al-Jadidi in May 2012, 200 kilometers from the nearest settlement. Flight Sergeant Copping, a member of a fighter unit stationed in Egypt during the North African combat against the Rommel, is believed to have been lost while moving the damaged Kitty Hawk to another airbase for repair. The only thing known about him is that he lost his way and disappeared without a trace. Number 7.
Gotta be one of the scariest experiences ever, man.
Red-haired Chinese mummies. According to researchers, the remarkably well-preserved Bronze Age mummies discovered in the Kolmanskop Desert in far west China decades ago were not, as had previously been believed, migrants from the west, but rather members of an indigenous tribe derived from an early Ice Age Asian civilization. Around 300 mummies were discovered in the tombs of the Tarim Basin of China's autonomous Zhejiang Uyghur province in the 1990s, dating from between 2000 BC and 200 AD. The bones were preserved by the area's dry climate and harsh winters, especially those of the beauty of Zhao He, whose facial features, attire, hair, and even eyelashes can be made out. Her name comes from the location where the graves were found. Many scientists assume the Tarim Basin mummies were migrants from the Black Sea area of southern Russia due to their so-called Western characteristics, including their odd dress and food, as well as their red and light brown hair. They were interred in boat coffins in the middle of a desolate desert, which supported that argument. A multinational team of scientists examined the genetic information from 13 of the earliest known mummies, which range in age from 2100 to 1700 BC, to gain a better understanding of their ancestry. They compared it to DNA from 5 people who lived in the Dungsgarian Basin, farther north, some 5,000 years ago, making them the earliest known human remnants in the area. The researchers discovered that the mummies from the Tarim Basin were not all recent arrivals, but rather the direct ancestors of the ancient North Eurasians, a group of people that had most likely vanished by the end of the last ice age 11,550 years ago. Number 6. 500-year-old shipwreck loaded with gold found in Libyan Desert. In the Libyan Desert,
See, that's all they need to hear. I bet they'll start finding more and researching more out there in the desert. They hear it's gold out there. Let them hear that some more.
diamond miners discovered a 500-year-old shipwreck with rare gold coins and other artifacts. In the region, which is, as we know already, referred to as African Skeleton Coast, wrecks are frequently unearthed, but experts concur that this was one of the most important finds ever. The discovery was found thanks to a partnership between the Namibian government and gem experts De Beers after a man-made lagoon on the southwest coast was drained. The ship is now thought to be the long-lost The Bomb Jesus, or the Good Jesus. It was stocked with gold coins said to be worth 9 million euro. It also had skeletons, copper ignots, elephant tusks, and guns to ward against pirates. 500 years ago, while sailing from Lisbon to India, Sir Francisco de Nohura's Portuguese ship vanished without a trace. The first indications of the catastrophe appeared in 2008 when miners used bulldozers to pierce the ocean floor in search of pipes, metal, and wood instead of diamonds. Dr. Dieter Noli, an archaeologist, was called to the scene and is currently figuring out what caused the ship to sink and why so much of its cargo is still in such excellent shape. Dr. Noli had been anticipating the diamond miners to find something, because shipwrecks are so frequent along the Skeleton Coast. Even if his foresight was accurate, nobody could have predicted these hidden riches. Number 5. Giant stone hand in the desert. It's scarce, arid, and dry. The Atacama Desert in northern Chile has unearthed scenery that could just as well be from Mars. The 40,500 square miles of red and burnt orange plains that make up this desert, which is the driest on Earth outside of the polar regions, stretches as far as the eye can see. The Pan-American Highway, a system of routes with a total length of around 19,000 miles, is reached during the journey through the desert, an impressive accomplishment for any travel enthusiast who enjoys taking long road trips. NASA has utilized the lunar-like landscape to test Martian rovers and surfers searching for a...
That hand definitely needs some lotion on it. Got me sitting here rubbing my hand. It looked dry. You know what I mean? I'm just playing with God. That's what I was just thinking of right then and there.
Different sort of wave are drawn to its silky sand dunes. Many people like stargazing at night because the sky is a multicolored marvel of constellations. The desert may be confusing to drive across, and initially exhausted tourists could mistake its most peculiar moment for a mirage. It rears up from the earth like a monster sinking in quicksand, putting out a hand in a last-ditch effort or cry for assistance. But tourists will discover that the Mano del Desierto, hand of the desert, is in fact quite genuine upon closer study. A stunning...
Anybody need a hand? Need a hand?
Aberration in the ground, generally unbroken flat swaths of sand, the thumb and the four fingers represent an abrupt vertical disturbance in the desert. Number 4. The works of old men, geoglyphs in the Middle East. The desert plains here are covered in hundreds of ancient stone geoglyphs that span from Saudi Arabia to Syria. Some have a kite-like structure, while others have wheel-shaped shapes. These are referred to as the works of old men. They have many different sizes, forms, and structural variations, much like the Peruvian Nazca lines. These ancient pieces of art are magnificent from above and beg many questions. What do they stand for? Who designed them? What function do they fulfill? The geoglyphs are essentially undetectable from the ground, but are clearly visible from the air. The nearby locals refer to them as old men works, but they're unable to provide any additional light on their makers. They're said to be older and span a far larger area than Peru's Nazca lines. RAF Flight Lieutenant Percy Maitland made the initial observation of them in 1927. While flying an airmail route over Jordan, he reported seeing the buildings over the Harat ash-Sham lava field in the Journey Antiquity. Some of the wheel-shaped buildings are grouped closely together, while others seem to stand alone. While many of them are spherical, some constructions have more of a rectangular appearance. Some circular buildings have spokes that don't appear to have any astrological significance, but some of them have two spokes that create a bar pointing at the direction the sun rises and sets. As the wheels are discovered on top of the kites, it's clear that they were made more recently than the kites. Although it hasn't been proven, some people think the wheels may have been connected to some kind of astrological ceremony. Number 3. 8 million mummified animals. Dogs have been devoted pets to us humans for ages. Once, however, they were wild creatures that did what was necessary to live. Additionally, they were used as portals to the afterlife in ancient Egypt, with the intention of having their owners' requests heard by the deity Anubis. But it's only now that people are realizing how many times, 8 million times, dogs performed this latter function. According to a team of British academics, this is the approximate number of dead animals that are believed to have been laid in the catacombs of Anubis at Saqqara, one of Egypt's most significant and often visited monuments, the majority of which were dogs. Given the various animal cults practiced in ancient Egypt, mass graves of this kind are not unusual, but this one stands out because of its size. Why an Egyptian might have transported an animal to such a spot, or whether it was living or dead, is one topic that scientists can at least partially address. The catacombs are thought to have been constructed somewhere between 750 and 30 BC, when Egyptian civilization was beginning to mix more and more with that of Europe, especially after ancient Greece and Rome. Number 2. Dead Sea Scrolls. Ancient Jewish and Hebrew holy texts, known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, were uncovered in 1946 and 1947 at the Qumran Caves in what was then the Mandatory Palestine, close to Ain Feshka in the West Bank, on the Dead Sea's northern coast. The Dead Sea Scrolls, which dated from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE, are regarded as a cornerstone in the history of archaeology with significant historical, religious, and linguistic value, because they contain the earliest extant manuscripts of whole books that were later included in the biblical canon, as well as the deuterocanonical and extra-biblical manuscripts that preserve evidence of the variety of religions throughout the late Second Temple Judaism. They also shed new information on how Christianity and Rabbinic Judaism first emerged. The Israel Museum's Shrine of the Book is where the state of...
That's funny. We were just talking about certain things about Christianity earlier in the previous video. It's funny how that stuff just keeps coming back around.
and Rabbinic Judaism first emerged. The Israel Museum's Shrine of the Book is where the state of Israel keeps the majority of the scrolls. However, some of them were moved to Jordan and are currently on exhibit in the Jordan Museum in Amman. The state of Palestine, however, asserts ownership of the scrolls. Number 1. Giant concrete arrows. Imagine yourself on the road in the parched American desert. For miles, nothing is present. You suddenly notice a massive concrete arrow in the distance. The arrows were once
That's gotta be for like planes and helicopters, right?
lit by nearby beacons during the day. Some of these abandoned arrows may now be seen on Google Maps aerial maps, but the most of these light towers have long since vanished. No, you aren't having hallucinations. These mysterious structures, which can be seen scattered all throughout the country, were constructed in the late 1920s and early 1930s to aid pilots in navigating the country's developing airmail system. Tracking these unusual formations may be an engaging hobby for those in the know. Brian and Charlotte Smith, a retired Californian couple, travel the country by car while taking pictures of the arrows for their specialized website, Arrows Across America. According to the Air Traffic Control Association's Journal of Air Traffic Control, the arrows were constructed between 1926 and 1931. The arrows on the beacons were painted yellow and they were 25 miles apart. However, most of the remaining signs have now lost their color. Would you risk going out into the desert? What's the strangest thing you ever saw in a desert environment? Let us know.
I've never been, but if I did eventually go, or I would definitely want to go see that hand coming up out of the ground. You know what I mean? I never had a reason, to go. Queen's been talking about Dubai, going to Dubai, but like I said, man, never had a reason, but it definitely interests me and it's definitely on my radar now. You know what I mean? So much history everywhere, but it's a lot of history, I feel like, in that desert, in the deserts, not just one, in the deserts. You know what I mean? So it's definitely on my list now, on my radar for real. So y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you thought of this video and stick around and stay tuned. Till next one, I'm gone. Peace.